Hey again, guys, this is Aaron again. I'm actually going to be talking about my what led to my diagnosis of MS. Um, okay, let me just get into it. What happened was I was having real bad pain in my left eye. Now, at the time, I was a little hard headed. Didn't think of it, of course. I definitely didn't think I had MS or anything like that. And it got worse. I actually thought, to be honest with you, when it started, I thought it was the flu. That happens to me when I have the flu. My eyes hurt. Whenever I catch the flu, my eyes hurt, and I can't really move them that well. But it was only one eye this time, so that was strange, but not enough to make me do anything that I'm supposed to do about it. And so, what ended up happening was, after a course of 3 days, it got worse. And so, I went to the doctor after I went to work, which I shouldn't have done that. Should have just went straight to the doctor. But the hospital was right across the street from my job, and so I went to work that night and went to the hospital right after, and was in the ER, and the doctor was telling me that he thinks he knows what it is, but he wants to make sure. So after examination, they told me I had optic neuritis. So optic neuritis is an inflammation of the optic nerve. Now the optic nerve is made up of fibers, nerve fibers that send information to your brain to basically of course to let you know what you're looking at or whatever the case, decipher what you're looking at. And so what that was what was inflamed. That's what was damaged. And so after he examined it, he told me that's what it was. And the funny thing about it, he made the statement that I don't really. He said, I don't really think you have MS. He mentioned MS, that the majority of the patients that come into that hospital with that particular problem have MS. And so he said, I don't really think you have MS. And he walked off. Later on down the line, later on, realized why he was saying that. It was because most of the people with MS are Caucasian females, which is, I don't know if that's changed or whatever the case may be, but that's the only information I have now. So he told me um, uh, he needed a second opinion to figure out what was going on, and so he wanted to make sure, and so he uh, had a neurologist come in, their head of neurology. So he came in and he took a look at me, did all the little tests, stand up, pull me close, and all that type of stuff test. He did that test, and so he eventually said he wanted to keep me overnight, which I was really about, and I was already crazy about my eye. I was like, whatever it takes to get rid of this, and so he kept me overnight, did an MRI on me, and what ended up happening was I stayed there for about 4 days. Um, After they did the MRI, eventually, they came back and said they noticed something they want to make sure of. And so they told me that they wanted to do a lumbar puncture or a spinal tap. And so I was a little reluctant. They convinced me, and plus I did my own little research and I asked a ton of questions. I think I was getting on the nerves of how many questions I got, but this is my body. I want to make sure everything is above board. And so he came. They came constantly. It was a couple of he's. I put it like that, mostly males. And so came back and told me that after the lumbar puncture, which that was crazy too. I'll tell you that in a minute. But after the lumbar puncture came back and just basically told me, yeah, you have MS. And so we're like I said, with the lumbar puncture though, the nurse was short. She was short, and so she had to stand on some of the bed at the bed that I was on. She had to stand up on some of the bars that the bed was using to hold the bed up, and so she had to stand on that to hold me while while he had a needle in my back, and her foot kept slipping, and so she was shaking me. The needle was in my back, and so yeah, I was that was definitely a little scary. So anyway, everything turned out okay. So anyway, after was diagnosed and everything, they was able to give me my first Copaxone injection, which of course I told you I did a video about. And the steroid treatment that they gave me for about the course of 3 days, 4 days. They gave me 4 days of steroid treatment. Now, during this time, my eye was not, my vision was not completely back in my left eye. And it was, again, that was strange, man. I've never had anything go wrong with that, and that was really strange for me, and so scary too. It's really scary, but it came back eventually, not completely, but the only person that would notice is a doctor, and you, when the doctor's examining you to figure this all out. And so that was my first experience with a diagnosis, and so like one of the things that I know he was asking me is, had I ever had anything happen in the past that would kind of lead me to believe that. Now, I told him some of the things that was crazy. I was like, trouble swallowing. It was sort of a, have you ever had trouble swallowing? And I was like, yeah, I've had that happen to me before. I couldn't swallow. And another thing I said, and also I was having trouble with my right leg. It would go out on me every now and again. And again, this was all new and wasn't as frequent as it is now. Now, both legs just, I never know when this is going to happen. I can get out of bed and fall, so I keep a cane by the bed. I keep a cane by the front door. I keep a cane in the car in case, anything, happens to, to where I need it. So anyway, the thing that I was fearing the most is losing my vision. I've had a couple of happenings. I have permanent damage now, but that's because of that, of course, and a couple other things that was that had happened to me. A couple of other flare-ups and relapses that happened to me after that. One being to where my vision was knocked off to where I was seeing double. And that was so strange, frustrating. I know that it was really frustrating. Seeing double vision, sitting up there trying to, you're trying to wheel your eyes. That was crazy, stupid. I know it sounds stupid, but yeah, it was crazy. It was something trying to wheel my eyes back straight, but I had to eventually go. I had to go to the hospital, and I went to the hospital and they fixed everything. I've been through a couple other things that I'll talk about in another video, but that was my first. That was the first thing that ever happened to me. So if you all have ever had optic neuritis to be your first diagnosis of MS or just optic neuritis in general, you leave a comment about it. I really appreciate it, and I do appreciate the comments on the other videos. They were very positive. And I thank you all for those comments, and I'm glad. It makes me happy that I can actually help or relate or some kind of way to what somebody new to it is going on. I'm relatively new, I guess you can say, but I don't know if I can say I'm new anymore. But yeah, new things are happening to me, and that I'm just trying to deal as I go. And I understand it, and if anybody else understands it, again, you can leave a comment about it. You all have a good day.